You have finally reached the end of this incredibly long and demanding day. I know exactly how deeply exhausted you are right now. You have been carrying the absolute weight of the world on your shoulders for so many hours, quietly bearing heavy burdens that no one else can even see. Your mind has been running a relentless, exhausting marathon, trying desperately to solve every problem, trying to anticipate every need, and trying to be strong for everyone around you. But right now, in this sacred and quiet moment, I want you to hear this beautiful truth deep within your weary soul. You are simply too tired, and you absolutely deserve to rest. The Creator of the universe is looking down at you with such profound, unending tenderness, not asking for any more effort, but gently inviting you to just stop. It is officially time to power down your racing mind and let go of all the heavy demands of the waking world. For so long, you have believed the exhausting whisper that you have not done quite enough to earn a moment of true peace. You have wrestled with the heavy guilt of stopping, especially while the world constantly demands more and more of your energy, your time, and your spirit. Let us lay that heavy, unfair guilt down right here, once and for all. Your ultimate worth is not measured by your relentless productivity, nor is it measured by your ability to constantly stay awake and fight the crashing waves. God sees the incredible amount of love and effort you pour into your daily life, and He is proudly telling you that your labor for today is completely finished. You do not need to prove your strength to Him or to anyone else, because your truest identity is simply being His deeply loved child. Embrace the total grace that allows you to pause, to breathe, and to accept the restorative healing that you so desperately need tonight. Let us begin by deliberately releasing the deep physical tension you have been unknowingly holding on to all day long. Bring your gentle, unhurried attention to your jaw and consciously allow those tight muscles to completely unclench. Let your tongue fall away from the roof of your mouth and feel the tiny, tight muscles around your eyes begin to soften and smooth out entirely. Take a very slow, deep breath in, filling your weary lungs with the calming peace of God. And as you slowly exhale, let your shoulders drop heavily. You have been locked in a high alert state of survival, silently braced for the next unexpected challenge. But that exhausting emergency is completely over now. Feel the heavy, soothing weight of your own body melting effortlessly into the soft mattress beneath you. The surface beneath you is incredibly strong, and it will hold you securely, so that you do not have to hold yourself up for even one more second. Allow this beautiful warm wave of heavy relaxation to travel very slowly down through your chest, your back, and your arms. Feel it flow all the way out to your fingertips, bringing a warm, tingling numbness to your overworked, tired hands. Your hands have grasped, built, fixed, and carried so much today, but now they can rest completely open and wonderfully still at your sides. Let this comforting warmth continue to flow deeply down through your torso, gently untangling every stubborn knot of hidden anxiety. Feel it sweep down through your legs, entirely relaxing your thighs, your knees, your calves, and your feet. Every single muscle in your body is joyfully surrendering the need to move, the need to act, and the need to defend. Your body finally understands that the day's labor is genuinely finished, beautifully surrendering to the natural, God-given desire for deep, uninterrupted sleep. Tonight, we are making this very bed a sacred, divinely protected boundary where the noisy outside world is absolutely no longer allowed to enter. No unfinished to-do lists, no unspoken expectations, and no swirling anxieties are permitted to cross the threshold of this holy sanctuary. God Himself has drawn a permanent, protective circle of infinite grace all around you, standing as a faithful, loving guard over your fragile mind and your weary spirit. If a sudden worry tries to knock on the door of your thoughts, you can simply acknowledge it without any fear and watch it bounce softly away from this divine, impenetrable barrier. You absolutely do not have to solve tomorrow's complex problems with today's exhausted, depleted mind. Your one and only spiritual duty for the next hour is to completely surrender to this total safety and allow yourself to be tenderly cared for by the God who never sleeps. As your physical body sinks deeper and deeper into profound comfort, I want you to allow your imagination to safely carry you far away from this room. We are traveling back in time, far across the ancient world, to the warm and dusky shores of the Sea of Galilee. The sun is just beginning its beautiful, slow descent toward the horizon, painting the vast, ancient sky in breathtaking shades of deep amber and soft, glowing gold. You can feel the evening breeze, perfectly gentle and incredibly soothing, brushing softly against your tired skin. Beneath your bare feet, the fine sand is losing the heat of the day, feeling wonderfully cool and welcoming as it grounds you in this quiet, peaceful reality. The loud, demanding noises of your everyday life are already fading into total silence, replaced by the calming, rhythmic sound of fresh water softly sweeping up onto the tranquil shoreline. Take a slow, deliberate walk toward the very edge of the water, feeling the refreshing, damp coolness of the wet sand as the gentle tide rolls in. Waiting for you there, bobbing softly in the shallow, crystal-clear water, is a sturdy, ancient wooden fishing boat. This steadfast little vessel represents your long-awaited departure from the heavy, solid ground of your earthly responsibilities and all the loud, pressing crowds that constantly ask for your time. Reach out your hand and softly touch the thick, heavily weathered wood of the outer hull, feeling its enduring strength and its quiet history beneath your fingertips. With a slow, deep, highly satisfying breath, you step up and carefully over the side, leaving the sandy shore completely behind you. You are physically and mentally stepping away from every single expectation, choosing to leave all the noise, all the pressure, and all the endless striving on the beach where they belong. As you step down onto the sturdy wooden floorboards, you can physically feel the exact, liberating moment when you fully disconnect from the solid ground. The boat is gently pushed away from the shallow shoreline, and you settle down into a comfortable, secure, and incredibly cozy spot near the back of the vessel. Watch the sandy beach slowly drift further and further away into the gathering shadows, until the people and the urgent demands of the daytime become nothing more than tiny, insignificant specks fading in the distance. You are safely floating out into the vast, open expanse of the beautiful freshwater sea, surrounded only by the serenity of nature and the comforting embrace of the approaching twilight. The endless water all around you is wonderfully calm, glowing beautifully with the soft, fading light of the setting sun mirroring off the glassy surface. There is a profound sense of isolation out here on the deep water, but it is not lonely in any way. It is a rich, peaceful, and highly restorative solitude that your overwhelmed nervous system has been desperately craving all day long. Listen very closely to the deeply relaxing, hypnotic sounds of this ancient wooden boat moving so gracefully through the gentle evening tide. You can hear the slow, rhythmic, hollow creaking of the timber, a deeply comforting sound of safety, buoyancy, and ultimate stability on the open water. Hear the soft, repetitive, liquid lapping of the small waves gently kissing the sides of the wooden hull, creating a beautiful, natural, ancient lullaby just for your ears. Feel the incredibly soothing, rocking motion of the boat, swaying gently from side to side, rising and falling, cradling you securely like a deeply loved child resting effortlessly in a hammock. With every single tiny sway of the boat, you can actually feel your own heart rate slowing down, effortlessly matching the ancient, unhurried rhythm of the Sea of Galilee. Your active brainwaves are gracefully shifting, slowing and softening, drawing you further and further down into a state of pure, heavy, inescapable relaxation. The deep, rich scent of the freshwater sea mixes beautifully with the faint, earthy fragrance of cedar coming from the wooden planks of the boat. You lean your head back against the smooth, curved wood of the stern, feeling a wave of absolute lethargy wash over your tired limbs. The endless expanse of water around you acts as a massive natural buffer, separating you by miles and miles from any phone calls, any emails, or any urgent requests from the modern world. The rocking of the boat becomes a hypnotic pendulum, swaying back and forth, side to side, gently coaxing your mind to let go of its tight grip on reality. You are floating in a suspended state of grace, untethered from the heavy world, entirely supported by the water, and perfectly primed to enter the deepest state of rest you have felt in a very long time. As your eyes slowly adjust to the softening, romantic light of the evening, you realize you are not alone on this peaceful journey across the water. Sitting quietly just a few feet across from you, resting peacefully in the dimming light of the boat, is Jesus. His magnificent, loving presence completely fills the small space with an overwhelming, tangible sense of safety, profound warmth, and absolute peace. Look deeply at the gentle, unhurried expression resting perfectly on his face. There is absolutely no disappointment, no urgent demand, and no hidden expectation in his kind eyes. He does not ask you to pray eloquently, to explain your recent failures, or to engage in any heavy theological reflection right now. He knows exactly how thoroughly depleted you are, and he is simply here to offer you his quiet, fiercely protective companionship as the deep shadows of the night begin to gently fall. There is an incredible, life-changing relief in realizing that the King of the universe is sitting entirely relaxed in the very same boat as you. Because he is completely vigilant and awake, you do not have to be on guard anymore. Because he is watching over the vast expanse of the water, you are fully free to completely let go of your desperate need to control your surroundings. His sovereign, majestic peace becomes your peace, flowing silently between the two of you in the beautiful, gentle quiet of the descending night. You do not have to impress him, and you do not have to hide your profound exhaustion from him. You can just be wonderfully, authentically tired, safely cradled in the loving presence of the one who holds all of time and space in the palm of his hand. Together, the two of you watch in a deeply comfortable golden silence as the sun melts completely and finally below the distant, rolling hills of the horizon. The bright, energetic colors of the daytime effortlessly dissolve into deep, sleepy, heavy hues of dark violet, midnight indigo, and soothing charcoal gray. The gentle fading of the daylight is a powerful, undeniable visual signal to your subconscious mind that the labor of the day is permanently, officially closed. The sky is slowly pulling a dark, incredibly comforting velvet blanket over the entire world, signaling to all of creation that it is finally time to rest. You no longer have to perform, you no longer have to produce, and you no longer have to keep your weary eyes open for the sake of anyone else. The breathtaking transition from day to night is a sacred, God-given boundary, and you are beautifully held within its deep, restful shadows. Look up as the first few brilliant silver stars begin to slowly emerge in the vast, darkening expanse above, glittering wonderfully like tiny, flawless diamonds scattered across deep, dark velvet. The twilight air around you grows wonderfully cool and incredibly fresh, dropping the temperature just enough to make you feel instantly cozy and deeply secure. Draw this crisp, clean air deeply into your lungs, filling them with the pure, untainted scent of the open sea, and feel it washing away the very last lingering remnants of your daily stress. With Jesus resting right there beside you, the growing darkness is not something to be feared. It is something to be profoundly and joyfully welcomed. The night is not an enemy, but a deeply loyal friend sent by God to provide the exact stillness your exhausted mind requires to heal and repair. Allow the deep indigo colors of the evening sky to settle heavily over your weary eyes, inviting them to grow heavier, more tired, and perfectly content. Let your breathing naturally and effortlessly synchronize with the slow, incredibly steady movement of the water rolling gently beneath the boat. As the heavy wooden hull rises slightly on a smooth evening swell, take a slow, deep breath in, drawing the absolute peace of Christ deep into the center of your soul. As the boat softly and slowly lowers back into the quiet trough of the wave, release your breath completely, exhaling all remaining physical and mental tension out into the cool evening air. Rise slowly and breathe in profound grace. Lower softly and breathe out profound exhaustion. Your chest moves in perfect, flawless harmony with the water, completely and beautifully anchored in this peaceful present moment. You are safely wrapped in the divine shadows, resting entirely with your Savior, perfectly prepared for whatever the night may bring. As you rock gently on the dark water, the sky begins to dramatically change. The beautiful tapestry of sparkling silver stars is slowly being swallowed by massive, bruising clouds of deep charcoal and midnight black. The comforting warmth of the evening air is suddenly pierced by a sharp, unpredictable gust of wind that sweeps down from the surrounding mountains, bringing a sudden, bracing chill to your skin. The perfectly smooth, mirror-like surface of the Sea of Galilee instantly fractures into hundreds of jagged, restless ripples, completely erasing the peaceful reflection of the moon. This sudden, dramatic shift in the ancient atmosphere is exactly like the unexpected, terrifying moments in your own life when a calm season is suddenly violently interrupted by a sudden storm of worry. Listen as the gentle, rhythmic lapping of the water against the ancient timber rapidly transforms into a heavy, aggressive splashing. The deep, hollow creak of the sturdy wooden hull begins to sound strained and stressed, groaning under the escalating pressure of the newly formed, incredibly choppy waves. A sudden, freezing spray of icy, dark water violently crashes over the high side of the vessel, deeply chilling the air and heavily misting your face in the gathering darkness. The boat begins to pitch and roll with a frantic, erratic, and deeply uncomfortable energy, entirely losing that beautiful, slow, hypnotic sway that was lulling you towards sleep just a few moments ago. The wind begins to howl with a deep, low-frequency, terrifying roar, echoing fiercely across the pitch-black sea like a massive, invisible beast that has just been violently awakened. All around you in the suddenly terrifying darkness, the seasoned fishermen who were previously relaxed and quiet are instantly thrown into a state of raw, hyper-vigilant panic. You can hear the desperate, heavy thud of their bare feet rushing across the rapidly soaking floorboards. Their bodies completely flooded with raw, survival-driven adrenaline. They frantically scramble to tighten the thick, coarse ropes, urgently shouting desperate commands to one another that are instantly swallowed by the deafening roar of the raging tempest. Their faces are twisted with intense fear, their jaws are tightly clenched, and their eyes are wide with the terrifying, overwhelming illusion that they can actually control this escalating chaos through sheer human willpower. Is this not exactly how your own mind reacts when the heavy storms of life suddenly hit? Frantically scrambling to fix every single problem, desperate to hold everything together on your own exhausted strength. The towering, pitch-black waves continue to grow to an absolutely terrifying, monstrous size, rising up like moving, churning mountains of dark, freezing water. These massive swells crash violently against the fragile, groaning timber of the fishing boat, with a devastating, terrifying force that violently shakes the very floorboards beneath your tired feet. Even though the terrifying noise is wildly chaotic and the situation feels incredibly dangerous, you remain entirely safe and wonderfully insulated in your quiet corner of the story. To your resting ears, the massive, booming thunder rolling heavily across the sky remains somehow beautifully muffled and comfortably distant, like a deep, heavy bass gently vibrating in your chest. It is a massive, incredibly humbling reminder of exactly how unbelievably small you are in the face of the vast, uncontrollable forces of the universe, and how little you truly control. The deep, heavy winds are now screaming violently through the rigging, violently tearing at the sails and completely dictating the terrifying, erratic path of the helpless wooden vessel. The fishermen violently grab hold of the massive, heavy wooden oars, desperately throwing the entire weight of their strong bodies into fighting the incredibly powerful, unyielding current. They are fiercely battling the overwhelming, exhausting belief that if they just try a little bit harder, pull a little bit tighter, and move a little bit faster, they can somehow outsmart the massive crashing waves. But the violent storm wildly surrounding the fragile boat is a powerful visual reminder that some waves are simply far too big to ever conquer with mere human hands. You absolutely do not have to fight the heavy wind right now, because the storm is undeniably too massive for anyone to defeat, and it is time to simply stop fighting. The small, incredibly fragile vessel is thrown wildly and helplessly in the terrifying darkness, pitching violently up toward the black sky and plummeting terrifyingly deep down into the dark, foamy trenches of the sea. You watch closely through the freezing, misty spray as the deeply exhausted disciples plunge the heavy ancient oars deep into the violent churning water with pure, unfiltered desperation. You can vividly see the grueling, intense, fiery burning of pure physical exhaustion settling deeply into their thick, muscular arms as they row wildly against the raging tempest. Their broad, highly capable shoulders are screaming in pure, agonizing pain, muscles violently trembling under the immense, crushing weight of trying to literally drag the heavy boat through the violent sea. The heavy timber of the ancient oars groans and fiercely bends under the immense pressure of the chaotic waves, brutally threatening to snap completely in half at any given second. The sheer, devastating physical toll on these frantic, desperate men is completely heart-wrenching to witness in the sudden, blinding, brilliant flashes of lightning. Their strong, rough, calloused hands are visibly blistering and profusely bleeding against the heavy, wet wood of the shifting oars, gripping them so tightly that their weary knuckles have turned completely white. Cold, salty sweat intimately mixes with the freezing, violent spray of the crashing sea, dripping heavily down their terrified, deeply panicked faces as they gasp desperately for thin, cold air. They are giving absolutely everything they possibly have inside them, pouring every single ounce of their rapidly fading physical and mental energy into simply surviving this terrifying, seemingly endless night. They are entirely depleted, running completely on the absolute fumes of raw, terrifying panic, desperately hoping that their sheer human willpower will miraculously save them. This agonizing, desperate, and completely futile struggle in the heavy darkness is the exact, visceral essence of your own profound human burnout. It perfectly and tragically mirrors your own core, invisible pain, constantly pulling the heavy oars of your demanding daily life until your mind shatters and your weary spirit is totally depleted. You have been fighting desperately, entirely alone, through incredibly long seasons of deep anxiety, intense family pressure, and heavy, completely overwhelming worldly responsibilities. You have fiercely gripped the heavy, painful oars of your own survival for so many long months that your physical body is screaming for rest, and your mind is completely, undeniably exhausted. You desperately keep feeling that no matter how incredibly hard you work, or how much of yourself you fiercely sacrifice, you are still painfully, utterly stuck in the exact same overwhelming storm. The most crushing, completely heartbreaking realization of all begins to slowly, tragically dawn on these deeply exhausted, completely desperate fishermen. Despite their incredible, agonizing physical efforts, and despite all of their vast, lifelong, earthly experience on this very sea, they are making absolutely no forward progress against the unyielding gale. The towering waves are simply far too high, the howling headwind is fiercely too strong, and the churning, chaotic ocean is impossibly too vast for their fading human strength to ever conquer. The massive, roaring wind is fiercely blowing them violently backward, ruthlessly and coldly, mocking their frantic, desperate human attempts to save themselves from the deep abyss. They are hopelessly trapped in a terrifying, inescapable state of profound burnout, giving absolutely everything they have left and tragically receiving absolutely nothing in return. Then the terrifying, undeniable, absolute peak of human fatigue finally arrives in the deep, howling, pitch-black darkness of the furious sea. A massive, towering wall of freezing water crests violently over the high wooden edge of the vessel, pouring hundreds of gallons of dark, heavy water directly onto the wooden floorboards. The incredibly heavy, freezing water rapidly and aggressively pools around their tired ankles, bringing with it the horrifying, undeniable realization that the boat is officially, rapidly taking on water. This is the ultimate, incredibly humbling breaking point, the exact, terrifying second when all fierce human willpower, deep earthly resilience, and desperate physical effort completely and utterly fail. It is the incredibly painful but deeply, divinely necessary moment of total surrender, forcing the exhausted soul to finally admit that it simply cannot fight the crashing waves on its own anymore. In a stunning, completely cinematic, and profoundly beautiful pivot, I want you to gently draw your weary attention completely away from the deafening wind and the frantic, screaming men. Look completely away from the terrifying, towering waves crashing violently over the fragile sides, and softly guide your heavy gaze deep down into the dark, sheltered lower stern of the wildly rocking boat. There, quietly resting perfectly in the absolute center of the unimaginable chaos, completely surrounded by the deafening roar of the raging tempest, you see a truly impossible, miraculously beautiful sight. Jesus is completely, wonderfully, and profoundly fast asleep, tucked safely into the heavy, sheltering shadows of the incredibly ancient wooden vessel. He is lying peacefully in the very deepest part of the sinking boat, his heavy head resting perfectly on a soft, wonderfully worn, leather cushion, completely insulated from the frantic panic above him. His magnificent face is a flawless, absolutely breathtaking portrait of pure, unshakable tranquility amidst the darkest, most incredibly chaotic hour of this terrible night. While the entire physical world all around him is violently tearing itself apart in pure fear, his physical body is entirely relaxed, perfectly and beautifully surrendered to heavy restorative sleep. He is absolutely not bracing for impact. He is not tightly gripping the sides of the heavy wooden boat, and he is certainly not worried about the dark waves threatening to pull them under. The sheer, brutal violence of the dark sea, the freezing, misty spray of the crashing water, and the deafening, terrifying roar of the howling wind have absolutely no effect on his profound, infinite peace. He is the eternal, absolutely immovable anchor of pure calm, resting flawlessly in the absolute epicenter of the most terrifying, unpredictable chaos the natural world can possibly produce. Gently focus all of your deeply tired, incredibly heavy attention purely on the incredibly slow, deep, perfectly hypnotic rhythm of the Savior's calm, effortless breathing. Watch the incredibly steady, ultra-slow, peaceful rise and fall of his chest, completely and wonderfully unbothered by the violent pitching and dropping of the ancient wooden hull safely beneath him. As the massive waves violently crash and the fierce winds loudly roar, Jesus simply takes a slow, deep, beautiful breath in, fully embraced by the total safety of his Father's powerful hands. As the freezing water wildly sprays across the wet deck, Jesus lets out a long, heavy, incredibly relaxing exhale, absolutely confident in his ultimate sovereign authority over all creation. By keeping your weary eyes completely fixed on his remarkably slow, unhurried, rhythmic breathing, you can actually feel your own racing, terrified heart instinctively beginning to slow down and align perfectly with his. A profound, absolutely life-changing subconscious realization beautifully begins to take deep root within your extremely exhausted, anxious mind as you simply watch him sleep so incredibly soundly. If the Almighty King of the universe, the very sovereign Creator who meticulously formed every single drop of water in the vast sea, can sleep this deeply in the terrifying storm, then his absolute peace is infinitely greater than the chaos. God is never, ever panicked by the sudden, terrifying emergencies in your daily life. He is never overwhelmed by your human failures, and he is absolutely never frightened by the towering waves of your uncertain future. The heavy storms of life are incredibly real, and the chaotic wind does blow incredibly cold. But they absolutely do not have the final sovereign say over your ultimate eternal safety, because he is deeply resting in perfect, unshakable sovereignty. It clearly and beautifully means the entire massive universe is safely and securely held in the center of his strong hands. Look incredibly closely at the deep, heavy, profoundly restorative rest of your beautiful sleeping Savior, and gently let his total tranquility become a divine, undeniable permission slip for your own totally exhausted soul. His peaceful, undisturbed, majestic rest is a glorious, holy promise that the roaring, terrifying storm is absolutely not the master of your ultimate fate, and the true emergency is simply an illusion. You do not have to keep fighting tonight. You do not have to keep up your frantic, exhausting, hyper-vigilant guard, and you absolutely do not have to stay awake to desperately manage the chaos anymore. You are fully, beautifully permitted to completely lower your heavy defenses, entirely drop your heavy, painful oars, and fully let go of the impossible burden of trying to constantly save yourself from the crashing waves. Because Jesus is completely at peace, keeping absolute watch over the wind and the waves, you can finally safely close your heavy, weary eyes, lean your profoundly tired head back in the absolute darkness, and beautifully surrender to his perfect rest. The agonizing, desperate struggle in the violent darkness has finally reached its absolute breaking point for these completely exhausted fishermen. They are fiercely confronting the profoundly heavy, devastating realization that their sheer human strength is entirely useless against the massive power of the roaring storm. In a beautiful, deeply necessary moment of ultimate physical surrender, you watch as they slowly, painfully uncurl their severely blistered fingers. They completely release their frantic, white-knuckled grip on the thick, rough wood of the massive, waterlogged oars. With a heavy, totally definitive clatter that echoes softly under the roar of the wind, the heavy timber drops directly onto the soaked floorboards, perfectly symbolizing the end of their desperate human striving. I want you to very gently and deliberately mentally mimic this exact incredibly liberating physical act of total surrender right now in the absolute safety of your bed. You have been desperately gripping the heavy, invisible oars of your own complex daily life for so many incredibly long, exhausting hours today. You have tried fiercely to single-handedly row your family, your career, and your fragile peace of mind completely safely through a relentless, chaotic tempest. But tonight, God is giving you absolute, undeniable, divine permission to completely open your tired hands and gently let go of your fierce need to control everything. Let the immense, heavy burden of all those incredibly demanding worldly responsibilities beautifully clatter to the ground, and finally realize that you no longer have to carry them. Your intense modern burnout and your profound nervous system exhaustion are absolutely not a sign of your personal failure, nor are they a reason for deep guilt. This heavy, absolute exhaustion you feel in your bones right now is actually God's incredibly gentle, merciful preparation for your deepest healing. He has lovingly allowed you to reach the very end of your own highly limited strength, miraculously forcing you to entirely drop your heavy oars so that you can heavily depend on his infinite power. By completely reaching the absolute end of your own resilience, you have perfectly positioned your heavy, weary heart to receive a profound, life-changing miracle. You are totally safe to stop fighting the crashing waves, beautifully choosing instead to completely collapse into the vast, unending ocean of his sustaining grace. Stripped completely of all their earthly defenses, the deeply terrified disciples stumble wildly through the freezing, ankle-deep water, filling the fragile, sinking hull. They stagger blindly through the chaotic spray toward the heavy sheltering shadows of the stern, reaching out to desperately wake the profoundly sleeping Savior. But I want you to watch incredibly closely at exactly how beautifully Jesus responds to this terrifying, completely overwhelming emergency in the absolute dead of night. He does not wake up with a panicked gasp. He does not frantically scramble to assess the deadly danger, and he absolutely does not react with any form of earthly anxiety. He slowly, beautifully opens his gentle eyes in the heavy darkness, radiating a profound, unhurried, majestic peace that instantly pushes completely back against their raw human panic. There is absolutely no shock, no earthly fear, and no harsh disappointment in his incredibly kind, deeply compassionate gaze as he looks at his exhausted friends. He sees their sheer terror, he intimately understands their deep physical exhaustion, and he meets their crushing burnout purely with immense, sovereign, unconditional love. He simply looks into their weary, completely frightened faces and fully understands that they are far too tired to continue surviving this violent storm on their own. This beautifully compassionate gaze is exactly how God is looking directly at you in your own overwhelming, deeply exhausting season of profound mental burnout tonight. He is entirely ready to completely step into the terrifying center of your loud inner storm, absolutely taking on the heavy burden of the fight so that you can simply lay down and breathe. With breathtaking, unimaginable grace, Jesus slowly, majestically, and incredibly calmly rises to his feet in the very center of the wildly thrashing ancient wooden boat. Imagine this powerful, deeply cinematic, awe-inspiring scene as his incredibly steady, dark silhouette stands brilliantly against the violently crashing waves and the terrifying, flashing silver lightning. The fragile, heavy wooden boat pitches violently beneath his feet, but he remains incredibly tall, wonderfully strong, and perfectly, immovably anchored in the absolute sovereignty of his loving Father. The violent, freezing wind fiercely whips through his heavy earthly garments, yet he remains a majestic, unshakable pillar of ultimate cosmic order, completely standing boldly inside the terrifying chaos. He completely ignores the frantic panic of the desperate fishermen, choosing instead to step beautifully forward into the roaring darkness, perfectly asserting his undeniable dominion over the massive universe. He does not wildly scream at the massive, terrifying waves in frantic desperation, nor does he anxiously plead with the howling tempest to please spare their fragile human lives. The sovereign creator of the universe simply turns his completely calm, absolutely unhurried gaze directly out into the pitch-black void of the roaring sky and the violently churning sea. He slowly, majestically raises his incredibly strong, heavily capable hand with unquestionable absolute divine authority, demanding total silence from the ancient violent elements that he intricately formed with his own breath. He is entirely unmoved by the overwhelming chaos, projecting an unbelievable aura of supreme strength against the furious, screaming forces of raw, untamed nature. He is about to permanently and beautifully rewrite the very reality of this terrifying storm, wrapping his supreme, loving peace completely around the violent darkness. For a fleeting, incredibly profound, heavily silent fraction of a second, the entire massive universe seems to hold its absolute breath in pure, deeply reverent anticipation of his sovereign voice. With a voice that is incredibly deep, beautifully resonant, and perfectly, entirely serene, Jesus speaks directly into the absolute epicenter of the deafening, raging tempest. He does not shout over the heavy wind, but instead delivers an ultra-slow, beautifully hypnotic whisper that effortlessly carries the sheer, undeniable, pure creative force of God Almighty. He softly, firmly utters the absolute eternal command to the roaring sky, "Peace, be still." These magnificent, incredibly powerful words roll effortlessly across the dark, heavy water, perfectly and instantly piercing the very heart of the storm and fundamentally altering the ancient atmosphere. I want you to literally feel the immense, incredible weight of those exact, beautifully powerful words, perfectly echoing into the very deepest, most chaotic parts of your own exhausted mind tonight. Imagine that deep, resonant, heavy divine whisper, intimately speaking directly over your heavy, crushing burnout, heavily commanding the loud, raging chaos in your incredibly anxious thoughts to permanently cease. Peace, be still. He gently whispers completely over your overwhelming daily anxieties, entirely neutralizing your heavy financial burdens and your endless, incredibly stressful worldly responsibilities. The very creator of the wind and the massive ocean is directly ordering your heavy, internal mental chaos to instantly and completely shut down for the entire night. The loud, frantic emergency in your tired brain is absolutely being nullified right now by the very voice that spoke the billions of glowing stars into the vast dark sky. The absolute, immediate, breathtaking miracle that beautifully follows is an incredibly glorious, wildly indescribable display of his immense, pure sovereign power in the heavy darkness. In the exact, brilliant, flawlessly perfect fraction of a single second, the miraculously obedient natural world completely submits entirely to the unhurried whisper of the Almighty King. The incredibly deafening, fiercely screaming wind instantly completely dies down, entirely collapsing into a wonderfully soft, deeply, incredibly gentle, absolutely breathless, entirely harmless sigh. The massive, invisible beast of the violent storm is completely muzzled, instantly stripped of all its terrible power, leaving behind only the crisp, incredibly cool, utterly tranquil air of a quiet evening. A deep, heavy, profoundly sacred silence instantly blankets the vast sea, physically wrapping entirely around the fragile little wooden boat, like a thick, perfectly warm, heavy velvet blanket. The towering, terribly violent, desperately churning mountains of pitch-black water do not slowly subside, and they absolutely do not gradually roll away over many agonizing hours. They instantly, absolutely flatten out completely, entirely dissolving into total, profound nothingness in the beautiful, miraculous, impossible blink of an utterly tired eye. The deeply terrifying, chaotic, pitch-black water of the immense Sea of Galilee is instantaneously transformed entirely into a perfectly, flawlessly flat, incredibly dark, deeply peaceful mirror of pure glass. The violent, terrifying, erratic pitching and heavy thrashing of the ancient wooden boat completely ceases, gracefully settling perfectly down into a perfectly smooth, completely undisturbed glide. The frantic, aggressive splashing against the heavy timber hull is instantly beautifully transformed back into the remarkably soft, microscopic, incredibly hypnotic lapping of the gentle night tide. Look up as the massive, bruising, terrifying black clouds instantly and miraculously break wide open, rapidly scattering to totally reveal the incredibly calm, deeply breathtaking vastness of the midnight sky. The incredibly heavy, peaceful darkness is beautifully illuminated by millions of brilliantly sparkling, completely flawless, silver stars, glittering wonderfully like tiny, pure diamonds, effortlessly scattered across deep, dark velvet. The wonderfully warm, perfectly gentle, bright light of the full moon beautifully reflects completely across the newly undisturbed, incredibly tranquil, mirror-like surface of the deeply peaceful glass sea. The entire massive atmosphere is incredibly heavy with a pure, undeniable holiness, perfectly creating an absolutely safe, divinely protected environment, completely designed exclusively for your deep rest. The fragile, newly safe wooden boat just sits absolutely, beautifully still on the deeply glowing, crystal clear surface, entirely secure and infinitely loved by the silent, watchful universe above, as the massive, terrifying universe completely powers down around them. An incredibly heavy, profoundly overwhelming wave of pure physical and deeply emotional relief instantly washes over the completely drenched disciples. You can literally see their highly elevated, terrified heart rates beginning to dramatically, beautifully slow completely down, perfectly finding a wonderfully deep, gentle, incredibly slow resting pace. The incredibly deep, painful, Intensely tight muscles in their bruised, heavily aching arms perfectly completely melt away, finally letting go of all the raw, frantic, survival-driven tension. Their heavily clenched jaws completely drop, and they effortlessly fall deeply back against the thick wooden sides of the ancient boat, exhaling completely and heavily into the safe, crisp air. The terrifying, incredible danger is completely over. The fierce, agonizing struggle is absolutely finished, and the desperately long, impossibly difficult work of the heavy day is profoundly, officially done. I am beautifully, gently whispering this exact same core, profoundly absolute healing truth directly into the very deepest, most utterly tired part of your beautifully overworked soul tonight. The invisible, incredibly chaotic, completely exhausting inner storm deep inside your chest has been completely, divinely neutralized by the gentle absolute authority of the King of Peace. Your incredibly grueling, entirely lonely, desperately difficult human battle against the massive wind is officially, entirely, and wonderfully over for this day. You absolutely do not have to hold on tightly to your heavy anxiety for even one more second, because God has flawlessly commanded your internal atmosphere to be perfectly, absolutely still. Feel the massive, heavy weight of your frantic daily survival mode entirely dissolve, entirely melting completely away into the vast, calm, dark, glass-like waters safely surrounding you. The beautiful, deeply restorative silence wrapping closely around your profoundly tired body tonight is absolutely not an empty void, but a highly saturated, incredibly warm, heavy presence of total divine protection. It is the incredibly profound, deeply satisfying silence of a fiercely protective Heavenly Father who has just successfully, completely fought off all the terrifying chaos in the dark just for you. Every single heavy fear, every lingering doubt, and every single spoken or unspoken expectation has been completely and totally drowned in the deep, quiet, infinite expanse of His profound grace. You are flawlessly guarded, completely understood, and incredibly, totally loved by the Sovereign King, who effortlessly commands the very wind and the heavy waves with a single, gentle breath. The raging storm is absolutely over. The sea is perfectly, beautifully calm, and it is entirely, wonderfully safe for you to completely lower all of your heavy defenses and profoundly rest. The dark water is now completely still. The violent storm is entirely gone. You are perfectly and completely safe. It is time to truly rest. Move very gently toward the back of the boat. Move down into the quiet, heavy shadows. See the soft, incredibly worn leather cushion. It is the exact place where Jesus just slept. It is still warm with His perfect, infinite peace. Gently lay your heavy body down. Rest your deeply tired head heavily on the cushion. Let the soft leather beautifully hold all of your weight. You absolutely do not have to hold yourself up anymore. The ancient timber beneath you is incredibly strong. You are beautifully cradled in the deep darkness. The evening air around you is perfectly cool and completely calm. The loud, demanding noises of your day are totally silent. There is absolutely no more rushing tonight. There is no more trying so incredibly hard. Just this quiet, sacred, entirely safe space. Feel the microscopic, gentle rocking of the wooden boat. It is barely moving at all now, swaying just a single tiny millimeter to the left, swaying just a single tiny millimeter to the right. It is an ancient, beautiful, highly hypnotic rhythm, rocking, slowly, very softly. It is the gentle, resting heartbeat of the calm sea. This incredibly gentle rocking is perfectly lulling your busy brainwaves, pulling you deeper and deeper into a heavy, beautiful trance. Jesus is sitting quietly right beside you in the dark. He is entirely awake now. He is gently, faithfully keeping the long night watch. His sovereign eyes are peacefully watching the horizon, so you do not have to. He is fiercely standing guard over your weary mind. He is completely, totally protecting your exhausted spirit. Because He is watching, you can completely let go. You can absolutely entirely drop your heavy guard. You are safely hidden entirely in His ultimate care. He is flawlessly managing the entire massive universe for you. Close your heavy eyes completely in the total dark. The vast sky above is a perfect blanket of peaceful silver stars. The incredibly quiet night is deeply welcoming you home. Sink entirely into the wonderfully soft cushion. Sink wonderfully deeper into this profound, heavy safety. Your loud, frantic thoughts are rapidly slowing down. Slower, much slower. Every single deep breath pushes you perfectly deeper into rest. Breathe in the quiet, absolute grace. Exhale the heavy, painful exhaustion. Let us gently, beautifully release the very last of your tight muscles. Start at the very top of your heavy, weary head. Let your forehead become perfectly, flawlessly smooth. Let your heavy eyelids rest entirely, completely shut. Unclench your tight, incredibly weary jaw right now. Let your tongue fall softly away from the roof of your mouth. Release all the heavy, carrying tension in your tired neck. Your head feels impossibly, beautifully, completely heavy, melting entirely completely into the warm leather beneath you, surrendering completely totally to the gentle, pulling gravity. Let that heavy, wonderful relaxation wash completely over your tired shoulders. Feel your heavy shoulders instantly drop deeply down. All the heavy, massive burdens are completely, permanently gone. Let the warm, thick peace travel incredibly slowly down your arms, moving entirely through your tired elbows and your weary wrists. Your hands are totally beautifully empty now. They are resting perfectly still at your relaxed sides. You are absolutely no longer holding those heavy oars. Your hands are entirely, completely, perfectly relaxed. Letting go of every single heavy worldly expectation. The thick, profound, absolute peace flows warmly deeply into your chest. Your breathing is so incredibly beautifully slow, so perfectly even. Your slow heartbeat is a soft, gentle, resting drum. Let the profound warmth settle incredibly deeply into your stomach, completely untangling every single deeply hidden knot of anxiety. Your tired back is melting entirely into the wooden floorboards. You are totally, wonderfully immobilized by this beautiful, heavy comfort. You absolutely could not move even if you wanted to. You only profoundly want to deeply sleep. The heavy, perfect rest pours entirely, completely down your tired legs, effortlessly melting the deep, painful tension in your weary thighs, flowing wonderfully softly down, completely through your knees, relaxing your overworked, entirely exhausted calves completely, all the way completely down into the very tips of your resting toes. Your entire physical body is beautifully, perfectly paralyzed by peace, safely trapped perfectly in a profound, heavy, incredibly healing slumber. Every single cell is quietly, flawlessly repairing itself in the dark. You are profoundly, absolutely, completely ready for the deepest sleep. Jesus is softly draping a highly protective, incredibly heavy blanket of peace completely over you. Feel the comforting, deeply warm weight of his total, perfect grace. He softly tucks it tenderly, completely around your deeply relaxed shoulders. He wraps it beautifully, securely, completely around your heavy legs. You are flawlessly, totally insulated entirely from the outside world. No loud noise can possibly penetrate this sacred, perfect covering. No earthly demand can possibly reach you underneath this heavy blanket. You are perfectly swaddled in his absolute, infinite, unconditional love. You are so perfectly, incredibly, deeply, completely, incredibly warm. You are wonderfully, intensely, heavily, deeply, entirely loved. If one final, tiny, stubborn worry tries to faintly whisper in your quiet mind, just gently, softly picture it as a tiny, completely weightless stone. Rest it softly in the palm of your deeply relaxed, open hand. Now beautifully let it slowly roll right off your relaxed fingers. Watch it fall completely silently over the sturdy edge of the boat. Hear the tiny, incredibly soft, gentle splash in the absolute dark. Watch it sink entirely down perfectly into the deep black water, falling effortlessly deeper and entirely deeper into the ultimate abyss. God has swallowed it entirely, completely in his vast, silent sea. Your beautifully quiet mind is absolutely, totally, flawlessly clear. The beautiful ancient story is completely perfectly fading away entirely now. The softly spoken words are becoming much fewer and much further apart. There is absolutely only the massive, quiet, perfectly calm sea. There is absolutely only the tiny, completely safe wooden boat. The majestic presence of God is a thick, warm, heavy, protecting shadow. My gentle voice will completely soon dissolve entirely into the peaceful night. You are drifting beautifully, perfectly further, and entirely further away. The noisy, heavy world is entirely, completely, totally gone. Only the heavy, deep, pure, absolute rest safely remains. Sinking perfectly down, rest, sleep, deeply. Let go, peace, stillness, slower, heavier, surrender, totally. Breathe in the perfect, heavy quiet. Exhale the very last tiny drop of your heavy, exhausting day. You absolutely incredibly deserve this beautiful, deep, healing rest. The great sovereign king is holding you so incredibly tightly. Your exhausting, agonizing battle is completely, totally finished. The terrifying inner storm is absolutely, completely, permanently conquered. You are so incredibly deeply safe. Sink entirely, completely into the warm dark. Drift completely, absolutely, wonderfully away. Sleep profoundly, completely now. Good night, beautiful, perfectly weary soul. The deep, quiet night belongs entirely to you and your loving Creator. Be perfectly, absolutely, entirely, heavily still. Let the deep, incredibly heavy slumber fully, wonderfully claim you. Rest incredibly heavily. Sleep incredibly deeply. Peace, ultimate peace, absolute peace. Amen. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. In peace I will lie down and sleep. For you alone, Lord, make me dwell in safety. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul.